yeah. I mean, they were saying it's going to get caught up in our own circumstances. I mean, like I was saying before, like they were saying, you know, we've got everything we have going on. Oh, you know, I got this test and I had this basketball game, you know, or about Valentine's Day, what we're going to do then. We tend to get caught up when we hear about God. It's the most important thing. We think, oh, it's just God, you know, it's just church. But no, because you see, it isn't just God. Like how Paul writes in Ephesians 6, he calls it a life or death fight between us and the devil with all his angels. See, it's not just a game. In other verses, Paul refers to it as a race. It's a life or death race. 1 Corinthians 9:24 says, run in such ways to get the prize. Do not run aimlessly. When we hear that, we're like, okay, well, if God is the only thing that matters, not just the most important thing, but the only thing, then how do I run in such a way as to get the prize? How do I run? How do I focus on God like Lena and Sarah were saying? Well, he gets at this in Philippians 3, verses 13 to 14. He says this, brothers, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. He was talking about perfection, being Christ-like, that Christ-like righteousness. He says, I'm not going to consider myself yet to be perfect. I don't have that perfect holiness yet. But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. You see, I love that. And he says, one thing I do. It shows that Paul is single-minded. He has one sole focus. That all his efforts, all his life is focused on this one thing. He is single-minded in his living. And that one thing is forgetting what lies behind and straining toward what lies ahead. He says, I forget about everything else. I forget what lies behind. I forget the past. I forget my mistakes. I forget everything else going on. And I focus on what lies ahead. I focus on God in heaven. I focus on that. You see, none of it else matters. I forget it all. You know, it reminds me of like what Helena was saying. She says, you know, we get caught up in our own little problems. We just got to forget about it all. Focus on the only thing that matters. Focus on God. You know, I mentioned Revelations. So where anything about Revelation is all symbolism and all that, but where you understand the symbolism or not, you cannot ignore something that's happening. Throughout Revelation, you see all this disaster, all this misery falling on earth. You see earthquakes and famine, killing, destruction, like the world's falling apart, and all the people on earth are crying out, oh, it's too great, you know, oh, we can't bear it, oh, it's destruction. But then we look at this, all this misery falling on earth, they're crying out, focusing on destruction. We look at heaven, and we see all the angels, all the saints, we see everyone in heaven praising God. But every time the disaster falls on earth, we see those in heaven going, holy, holy, holy is the Lord. We see them saying, how great is God. So it's like on earth, all this misery is going. It's like once they're in heaven, they finally got what matters. It's like once they brought God into heaven, they finally realize that He's the only thing that actually matters in life. So they're spending every second, every moment, every waking hour praising God. How saying, how great is God. And I love that. This is kind of like what Paul was saying. He says, forget about the world, forget about everything going on, and focus on God. Forget about it all, straight towards God, press on towards God. There's one person in the Bible who didn't do this. It's all the way back in Genesis, the first book. Now, I think we've all heard, many of us have heard Abraham, not all of us. He was the father of all the Israelites, all the Jewish people. He appears a lot in Genesis, but there's one person, Abraham's relative, Lot. He isn't here, he appears a few times, but the thing about Lot is he lived in the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. The thing about Sodom and Gomorrah, those two cities that were so wicked, so evil, that God said, no, I'm going to wipe it off the face of the earth. Because the people in Sodom and Gomorrah were so consumed with themselves, so caught up in their sin, so caught up in this world, that God said, they don't want me, I'm just going to get rid of them. Abraham begs God, says, please, there's just 10 righteous men, don't destroy the city. So God said, fine, there's just 10 righteous men, don't destroy the city. So what happens is Lot lived in those cities, and Lot was a righteous man. So God sent two angels down to those cities to save Lot and his family before he destroyed it. And so this is where we're left up. There were two angels coming to save Lot and his family before God's going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. So chapter 19, verse 15 of Genesis. With the coming of dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, hurry, take your wife and your two daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished. When he hesitated, the men grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and his two daughters, and led them safely out to the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. As soon as they had brought them out, one of them said, flee for your lives, don't look back, and don't stop any And as they're running back, you see Lot's wife, and she looks back, she's like, well, that's my home, I just want to get one last look at it before it's gone forever, I just want to get one last look at my home. So Lot's wife, she looks back, and she's swept away with the city. She's like, she couldn't bear to let go of her home. She's like, well, I just got to get one last look at it. One last look. And so she looks back, and so she turned into a pillar of salt. See, she wasn't able to let go of it. And God said, God's like, I don't want you to take one last look at it. No, I want you to leave it behind completely for me. He says, don't look back, the angel said. Paul said, forget what lies behind. You see, Lot's wife, she wasn't able to forget. She wasn't able to let go of this world. She had to get one last look. She took her eyes off what was ahead. That's what the problem is. We do that all the time. We sort of, try to get one last look. It's like, oh, I just can't get one last look at this world, God said, no, forget about this world. Tune it all out and focus on me. Because God is the only reason we are alive. He is why we are alive, why we exist, why we're at school. It's like Solomon writes in Ecclesiastes 12, verses 13 and 14, he says, now this is the conclusion of the matter. After all's been said and done, after all's been said, after all's been heard, this is the conclusion. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. He says the whole duty, it is the whole reason you are alive, the whole purpose to existing. There is nothing else to life. So many times we get caught up, and it's an understandable mistake, but it's not excusable. So that's sort of the problem, is we forget why we are alive. We forget our whole purpose for living, the whole reason we exist. We take our eyes off the prize. We get too caught up in this world, just like last wife. So, I urge you for the rest of your life to never forget. Don't ever forget why you're alive, why you're at school, why you exist. Because as we see with Lot's wife, taking our eyes off the prize, focusing on what was behind, could cost us our lives. We could miss out on life completely. We take our eyes off God.